So it's pretty interesting to see what's going on in the industry, and this is something that I've talked about quite a bit that's going to be massive for the Nintendo Switch 2 going forward, considering the position and where the market is at this point. Now, there is a market research analyst that actually talked about the position of the Nintendo Switch 2 and how they see how this system could become a primary partner with third-party developers, considering everything that we've seen so far. So it sounds kind of crazy if you look at it, Nintendo a primary partner for third-party developers, but it really starts kind of folding or taking shape when you look at the current landscape. So we're going to talk about that, but first let's get into what DFC Intelligence had to say about this. So the research firm starts out by saying that the Nintendo Switch 2 could become, quote, the primary partner for third-party game publishers for the first time, going on to say that this dynamic evolution will shape the future of gaming. Now, I think that there's a lot of stuff that you can go off of that, right? Let's first start off with, okay, what is a primary partner? Well, a primary partner means that, hey, look, we're always going to release games for your system. With the Nintendo Switch 1, was Nintendo a primary partner for third-party developers? In some respects, yes, but for a lot of them, no, not at all. When you look at overall the breadth of content. Now, most third-party developers did make games for the Nintendo Switch 1, but it wasn't a primary partner. Now, things that are different to where they can become a primary partner, or at least what we're seeing here, is that we're getting the actual third-party development studios to put their games on the Nintendo Switch 2. So, for example, with Borderlands 4, it's not a port like Randy Pitchford explained in the creator's voice video. It's actually them doing it. It looks like Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, and the rest of the games that are confirmed to be coming over as well, based on the hinting from the creator's voice video, those are all being done by the same team who made the game on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and everything. So that to me shows that it's going to be more of a primary partner instead of getting some port studio to bring over every other type of game. Now, don't get me wrong, there's probably still going to be games where that's the case, but the breadth of games that are coming over and the fact that so many developers from the jump, before the system is even launched, has already pledged support for massive titles, that is a completely different thing than what we saw with the Nintendo Switch 1, where the biggest title at launch where Nintendo talked about was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and that was essentially it. Yes, we had some other developers come out on stage, a Skyrim port, right, of a game from the Xbox 360, yes, remastered for the PS4 and Xbox One, but still Xbox 360, a FIFA port as well, that wasn't even really a port of the best version. But these are the things that was not the case when it comes to Nintendo Switch 1. But on Nintendo Switch 2, you do have a high number of big profile games. They announced 007. They have Hitman. There's Split Fiction. There's Cyberpunk. There's Final Fantasy. There's Borderlands. There's Madden. There's NBA 2K. There is a plethora of games that the Nintendo Switch 1 just didn't have from a third-party standpoint in that first 6 to 9 months or so. But if you look at it from a Japanese angle, this is already the case. We saw the dynamic shift of the Nintendo Switch 1 and the sales, and so many Japanese developers do their best to make sure that they put games on the Switch 1 if it could come over. So I think that with Nintendo Switch 2, we're already seeing that massive demand, with a lot of third-party developers already saying that yes, the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be a primary partner. Look at what Sega is doing, multiple games. Koei Tecmo has games as well. Square Enix has games. Most of the big Japanese developers have already pledged support or are going to pledge support for the system, which was a huge change from what we saw with Nintendo Switch 1 at the beginning of the system's life, where nobody really believed in Nintendo and developers had to actually say, okay, wait, hold up, we need to put more games on there, like Bandai Namco. And of course, Bandai Namco is going to have games for the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. There's going to be Dragon Ball Z, Sparking Zero. There's going to be other titles coming over from Bandai Namco as well. So I fully expect this for Japanese developers. Yes, this is going to be and already is a primary partner overall, but for Western developers, I think that it's kind of transforming into that. Now, the other aspect of this is the Xbox Series S and X. Clearly, these systems are not selling as well, and as a third-party developer, you're going to want to have a huge base to sell too. And with the Xbox Series S and X not selling so well, Nintendo can slot in and become one of those primary partners so they can get the sales along with PC and PlayStation, which PlayStation is going to be the real primary number one. but Nintendo Switch 2 can actually slide into that spot to where it's like, hey, look, Xbox Series, clearly with Game Pass, game sales are a little bit sketchy sometimes, depending on what game you're trying to sell to that audience. But Nintendo has shown with the Switch 1 that users are more than willing to actually purchase a lot of games, even third-party wise, with games like The Witcher, Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, Dragon Quest, doing great on the Nintendo Switch 1 in the multiple millions of units. So I do think that a lot of third-party developers here in the West, and just big AAA developers, do think that Nintendo Switch 2 is doing enough compared to Nintendo Switch 1 overall with the specs and the system itself to kind of take that next step with third-party games. But we'll see exactly what happens here with the launch titles and what Nintendo is doing. But I also want to see exactly what's going to happen here with all the people that are not subscribed that hit that subscribe button to the channel. So make sure you hit that sub button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. Now let's move into another thing that kind of piggybacks off what I talked about when it comes down to it, and that's Take-Two. Take-Two has discussed the Nintendo Switch 2 a bit more, talked about some of the games that they have coming out, and the CEO, Strauss Zelnick, is a big believer in the system. This is what he had to say in a recent interview with The Game Business. Quote, "We feel really good about it, the Nintendo Switch 2, but it always remains to be seen. We're offering more on launch support than ever before for a Nintendo platform. We've announced 4 titles for Nintendo Switch 2. It remains to be seen how it does, but I am a big believer. Historically, Nintendo has done a better and more supportive job with first-party titles, but I think they are aiming to change that, and we have basically risen to the challenge and opportunity, and we'll see how it goes. We voted with our feet. Nintendo has asked us to be supportive, and we do believe we're doing that. Now we'll see what happens." So the games that Take-Two has announced for the Nintendo Switch 2 are Borderlands 4, Civilization 7, NBA 2K, and WWE 2K. So I think that all of these games actually have a good chance of doing well, and that's what Mr. Zelnick is talking about in terms of let's see how things go and the support overall. Borderlands, I think, has a really good opportunity to actually sell well because portable Borderlands with the type of guns and constantly switching and the open world and all the different stuff, that's really cool to have on a portable experience. So I think that Borderlands has a good opportunity. They were supported with the Nintendo Switch 1 as well. They put out a bunch of different games. Take-Two had a lot of games on the Nintendo Switch 1, and they did well when it comes to Red Dead and LA Noire, and they also had Borderlands, and they had other titles that came over that did good on the system. So I do see a continuation of that. Now some have kind of parlayed this into thinking that, oh, well, this means that GTA 6 is coming over. And no, I don't think that means that GTA 6 is coming over. Obviously, there'd be technical hurdles. There'd be other things that they have to consider when it comes down to it. This game has been in development since 2018, it seems like. So well before the Nintendo Switch 2 hardware was even finalized. So they didn't start developing on there. And yes, maybe they added on. Maybe it's something that they can do. But once again, I just don't think that it's going to be something that's an automatic based off of Mr. Zelnick, who supported the Nintendo Switch 2 vocally now multiple times. I don't think this means that, but I do think that it's an opportunity because the one thing with GTA 6, what they want is that they want sales, but they also want engagement. They want people constantly playing the game. They want people constantly playing the online, GTA Online, because of the shark cards. And the Nintendo Switch 2 offers a unique opportunity as an all-in-one hybrid system to play on the TV, then to easily transition and play on the go, even with online, to where people can buy shark cards and still buy DLC or buy extra content or be engaged with their game and thinking about their game. So I think that from that standpoint, I think that Mr. Zelnick wants to actually have GTA 6 on there, but whether it can actually be done and when it gets done, that's a whole separate scenario. You look at the install base, the PS5 is pretty much going to be the lead platform for this game, and it's going to help sell a bunch of PlayStation 5s, but the Xbox Series sales are a bit weak overall with the only 30 million in about 5 years. Probably going to have around 15 million units plus when GTA 6 launches in May of next year for the Nintendo Switch 2, so that's a pretty good install base and could rapidly expand depending on what software Nintendo has, especially with the 3D Mario game. So I'm guessing that they're absolutely going to see if they can get this on the Nintendo Switch 2. Having GTA 6 on a mobile platform hybrid the way the Switch 2 is, I think that would be big overall and could once again get people buying their shark cards anywhere that they are instead of just buying their shark cards when they're at home playing on the system and on the big TV. So what do you guys think about what Mr. Zelnick had to say here about Take-Two support with the Nintendo Switch 2, let me know in the comment section. But now we're going to move on to a classic game that was announced for the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, and that is Killer Instinct Gold. This is one of the games that I ranked it so many times back in the day, and I think it actually holds up pretty well. But the cool thing about Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack is the fact that you can play online. So if you have somebody that you know that you want to play with, you guys can get into the room if it's on your friends list, and you guys can play this game. I love when they bring back games that have multiplayer. It actually adds and opens up a whole new way of playing and functionality with the system, because we all would want online play. I know I wanted online play back in the day on the N64. Even back then I was thinking, man, it'd be pretty cool if I can play against my friend who's at his place, because online was just getting going. There was MMOs and there was some other stuff, but it just wasn't there. The infrastructure wasn't there yet. So we all kind of dreamed about that, having that arcade playing online experience, but just couldn't get it at the time. So having this come back with online play with your friends is actually a really good thing, and plus it's a great game. I love Killer Instinct. I use the combo breaker sound effect on my live streams. I was a huge fan of the original Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo and in the arcades, and I rented this game a lot, so I'm definitely going to check it out and see how it plays and looks on the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. So that's definitely a good thing. Looks like it's going to be coming soon as well. Looks like it's already available. Yeah, so you can go out there and try it out and see what you think. But yes, bring over more multiplayer old school games. The games from Rare are always fantastic, so the more that they bring over, the more titles that have the multiplayer to where you can play it online with your friends, the better for the service, to hopefully get more people to sign up and see some of the value in it. All right, let's get into the next topic here, guys, and we're going to discuss the Nintendo Switch lineup, because this is one of the things that I felt pretty strong about, that this is one of the best, if not the best lineup of games for the first 6 months or so that Nintendo's ever produced. I would argue that from an overall perspective, it is. If you count first and third party, there's no question. And if you're just talking about first party, you can debate here and there. But let's talk about this, because Nintendo put it in their investor meeting what they're going to be doing for this year, some of the key software. I think it's actually pretty substantial. So we know about the launch titles first party wise with Nintendo Switch 2. Got Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, that's going to be July 17th. Welcome Tour, which I do think that's a tech demo that should be included, but whatever. That's going to be June 5th with Mario Kart World. Summer 2025 is Drag Cross Drive, which it might not look that great from when they first showed it, but apparently people that got hands-on time say that it's actually pretty fun. So we'll see what they price that and exactly when that comes in summer. And then another big one here for first-party big Nintendo Switch 2 games is Kirby Air Riders, because that is from Masahiro Sakurai, and you know he's chomping at the bit to make something different, to make something outside of Smash Brothers. Now, don't get me wrong, he's still making Smash Brothers. I think he did this simultaneously, but at the same time, Kirby Air Riders is probably going to be packed with all sorts of great content, great gameplay, and surprise and delight a lot of people, just like Kid Icarus Uprising did when he directed that game as well. So expect there to be a lot more than what meets the eye at first, at least. Now, when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2 Edition first-party games, these are actually, to me, going to be sleeper system sellers, because they improve so many of the problems that people had with the original games, or games upcoming. Potential problems are already squashed from there. So June 5th launch, you're going to get The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild in 1440p in 60 frames per second, with new features added in, with way faster loading times. It looks great, it runs great, it plays great. So to me, people are going to pick up the Nintendo Switch 2 just to play these masterpieces in much better quality, because those were the problems with the games originally on the Nintendo Switch 1. Incredible games, but issues with 30 frames with some dips, resolution, loading times, things like that. Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV, that was a huge seller on Nintendo Switch 1. That's going to continue on with Nintendo Switch 2 as a casual game that families can pick up and play, and Mario Party fans. Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed Worlds, that is also another big one. New content coming in. That game sold like 9 million copies on the Nintendo Switch 1, and it's going to fix one of the biggest problems. The 30 frames per second on Nintendo Switch 1 looks great, but 30 frames, now you're getting that platformer in 60 frames per second with all the original base content. I'm finally going to maybe 100% this game. I've been wanting to go back to it, but felt maybe it'd play better on the Switch 2, and that's exactly what's happening here. Also, Pokemon Legends ZA, 30 frames per second. Now that looks like from the trailer 60 frames per second. So once again, squashing some of the problems before they even start up at this point. And the big one for many people, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond in 2025. That's going to run at 4K 60 frames per second, docked on the Nintendo Switch 2 with a 120 frames per second mode, portable and docked as well, between 720p for portable and 1080p for docked, plus a quality mode in portable as well, 1080p 60 frames per second. So a lot of features, a lot of functionality. The new mouse mode added in there as well. It's Samus finally coming back, the next mainline numbered Metroid Prime game, first one since 2007 with Metroid Prime 3. Wow, it has been quite some time, and the game just looks like it plays incredible as well. So I will be playing that game. Then you look at a lot of the third-party games that they detailed as well. Cyberpunk 2077, that's going to be at launch. You have Split Fiction at launch, Street Fighter 6 at launch, Bravely Default at launch, Yakuza 0 at launch, Deltarune at launch as well, plus some other games that are coming down the line, like Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which I think is going to be a fun game and not run like at 17 frames per second, maybe even lower, like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity did. Plus, you have the Dust Bloods, new from Software, Hades 2, that's going to be awesome as well. Plus other great stuff like Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion that Nintendo didn't put out here as well. In addition to Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, which is looking better and better. And both of those games here in the West actually have a full Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge and not game key cards as well. So that's also a nice positive. And all of Nintendo's big first-party titles are also on physical cartridges, along with Cyberpunk as well. Not a big first-party title, but Cyberpunk got some new gameplay footage on the Nintendo Switch 2 from a Japanese channel, and it looks great from what they showed as well. So this is probably the best rollout of games, first and third party combined, that Nintendo's ever had. If you look at the last 20 years, I don't think it's even close. But those are my thoughts on the matter. What games are you guys planning on picking up if you're getting the Nintendo Switch 2 this year, or even if you're getting it next year? What do you plan on picking up? What do you guys think about what I had to say, what some of the analysis on the market and what Nintendo could do? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.